Hi guys. Well, we are in our fifth part of this study of Corey Coffey and conspiracy. Let me get my clicker on here. I've had about an hour and a half to prepare for an hour of teaching. So hopefully I can pull something out of my hat. I'll make up something along the way. So as we start every week with our outline and 2 Corinthians 4:4, that the God of this world is Satan and the systems of this world are Satan's, which means we as Christians should be very sober-minded, looking around at where he's working and trying to figure that out. One of the posts that I saw this week, and I sent it to some of you, was why is Christians so susceptible to conspiracy theory? And the answer is because we've been trained to see an enemy that the average person doesn't even think exists. We're the ones that believe that we are dealing with principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. So therefore, when you start with that, and then we've been trained with the fact that all the world is working to a one world government system, especially us premillennials think that, all right? We believe that times are going to get worse and worse, not better and better. We don't believe we're ushering in any kingdom. Matter of fact, we believe that this is the time of the Gentiles, and it will be until Jesus Christ opens the seals and takes the deed to the earth back. And so therefore, because we're trained in this way, it's very easy for us to see, yeah, I can see how it can. And by the way, there is a difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory, right? You realize that? Most of what we shove out here is actually conspiracy fact, okay? It's not a theory. It's pretty much a proven example, what we're teaching right now with symbolism and sacred geometry, okay? And now what happens is we've been taking, and I'm not giving you the Masonic Lodge, you know, what do you call that? Yeah, the mantra, the disclaimer. Look, by this time, if you're irritated by it, I don't know what to tell you. Those of you that know, we're not attacking Masonic people. We're attacking the system. No different than we would attack Catholicism. We're not attacking the people. Okay? Same thing with Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not mad at the people. We're mad at the system. Okay? And now, by the way, just as a side note, if you really love the Word of God, according to David, then you'll hate every false way, which means once you get this book into your life, when things are contrary to the book, you have a hatred for those things. Now, Manly P. Hall says that, look, the best way for us to transmit information and knowledge from generation to generation and across culture communication is through symbolism. And he teaches about that, obviously, in the Secret Teachings of All Ages. But one of the things that when we talk about the occult, right, when I say that word, most people think, oh, occult. You're talking about like Satanism. No, that's cult. Occult literally means hidden or secret, right? So the occult is made up of secret societies, okay? I don't know what you know about the Masons, but it's based on the very premise that this is a secret society, and what we teach you here, you're not to tell anybody else, okay? Which is the exact opposite of the church. We teach you and we go, now tell everybody, okay? I don't know that you need to tell them about this class, but you know, the rest of the stuff that we're teaching, all right, go tell everybody. Go stand on a hill and scream it, all right? Because the Christianity is based on spreading the news. Occult is all about hiding it and only giving it out to a select group of people. Now, we got into last week the 24 sacred geometry symbols, and we started breaking these things down. And so we got into, and we started with Vesica Pisces, okay, which was a simple two circles put together intersecting at a certain spot. And we said that when you turn it horizontal, it's known as the cosmic womb. When you stand it straight up, it's known as the cosmic eye. And we said that if you go on to Google Earth and look at the Washington Monument, now remember, if you're new to this, the Washington Monument is 666 inches wide. It's 6,660 inches tall. It has a pyramid at the top. All right? It has a winged disc in there. There's nothing Christian about it. It's all occult symbolism. But notice how they did the sidewalks. Do you think it's just by accident that they did that? And when you're pouring concrete, you're really not going to just pour a bunch of extra because, well, we got extra, so make it curve. No, there's a reason this is laid out that way. And then when you turn the cosmic eye up on its side, you see the all-seeing eye of Horus, which is where CBS's logo comes from. Now, we also said not only is it CBS, but if you go and see the Vesica Pisces, I can never get the name out, you'll notice it's in the MasterCard symbol, it's in Gucci, it's in Chanel, it's in DC with the star, by the way. And then not only from this Vesica Pisces, when you start adding circles to it, you get the equilateral triangle, you'll have the cross, the rhombus, the Jesus fish, the six-pointed star. And we talked about how the Jesus fish has nothing to do with Christianity. It goes back to Dagon, the fish god. And the reason the Pope wears the hat that he does is based on Dagon and the fish god. All right? Then we got in, when you add a third circle to it, you have the triquetra. Okay, the triquetra is an ancient symbol, and some say, well, it's the teaching of the Trinity. You're right, it is. It's just we're asking the question, which Trinity? Because if you understand the book of Revelation, there is not only a holy Trinity, which is God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, but there is a demonic trinity, which is the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And you can go into Revelation and see that. But what happens is when you add that second circle, you end up with this shape known as the triquetra, which is on every New King James Bible that you purchase. And bottom line is, guys, we make no apologies. We are a King James Bible church, and it's not because we're mad at anybody. We're not. We truly believe that God preserved his word, not just for the English-speaking people, but for the whole world in English right here in the King James Bible. And he did that in 1611, and now we have the preserved word of God right here. And by the way, just as a side note, God has done more through a King James Bible than he ever did through Greek, Hebrew, or the original manuscripts. Right. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, okay? Now, so then we said not only is that triquetra on your New King James Bible, but it's used in the show called Charm that you used to see in the 90s. And it always had a circle around it. And as I'm studying symbolism, and most of what I'm studying is not some other Christian who studied it. I'm studying right from the Wiccans and those that are in the occult world that put it out there. And they'll tell you that anytime a circle is around a symbol, it automatically makes it evil. Why, I have no idea. I'm just going by what they say. But notice this one has the circle with it. Now, as you continue to add circles and get the triquetra, you start to get the geometry of the male and female parts of the what do we call that? There it is, equilateral triangles. Okay, sorry, I had to go back because I went blank. Now, so when you add it, at sometimes when they're on the top, it's a male version of it here, big, with a female pointed down. Switch it around, and all of a sudden, when you add to it, you get the six-pointed hexagram that we'll talk about tonight, which is where you get Solomon's seal. This is a huge esoteric symbolism. A few weeks ago, I showed you Melania Trump's official White House portrait, and it's this. And it's always as above, so below. It's got hell down here, the throne of God here. The Ouroboros snake, which is the snake that's eating its tail, is another symbol that hopefully we will get to. And then it's the moon and the sun, moon here, sun up here. The Iron Cross, which is what the Nazis flew on their plane. All right, and we talked a little bit about that. So then, as you keep adding circles to the Versica Pisces, you get my mind is going blank, guys. I'm just back up. That way I can do it. All right, the triquetra. Thank you. Way to help me out. All right, now, as you add to it, all right, and you keep adding it, you end up with what's known as the seed of life, which is this symbol right here, okay? And as you continue to go, you end up with the flower of life, which is this symbol, and then moves you on into the fruit of life, or the Metatron's cube. And this is all review, which is what leads you into the Cabal tree of life that is based on the flower of life. Right? Once again, you may be thinking, okay, well, who cares? Right? What I'm trying to show you is whether it's Masonic symbols, Kabbalism, the Mormon Church, whether it's Aleister Crowley, any one of those groups that are out there putting that symbolism out, they're all tied together as one. Which is why when we teach you that 2 Corinthians 4:4, that he is the God of this world, it's his one system. It's being seen in different departments, but it's his one system. If you come to the realization of realizing this, there are only two places to be: on God's team or Satan's. There is no in-between ground. And by the time this is all over and the world finally comes to the place where it ends, you'll realize it's either God's crew or Satan's crew. Now, it may be dressed up a different way right now, and you think, oh no, that's different than that. Well, it may be on the surface, but at the esoteric, occult, hidden knowledge of it, they're all the same. Now, we got into the tetrahedron, the hexahedron, and so forth, but which led us into the whole worship of Saturn. So this is a digital image of Saturn at the top of it. As you can see here, it's got a hexagon, which makes the cube, which is why you have cube worship, black cube worship everywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where you go. Christy and I have been to this one in Manhattan multiple times. The bum wasn't laying there asleep at the time, but we've been there. They also have a red one down in the financial district, and Apple has one up near the Central Park. Now, then we brought in these guys. You ever seen the Jewish people? When we were over in Israel in 2017, these guys all have these black cubes on their forehead with these straps around their arm. But notice and we'll get into this flag tonight, the shape that it brings out. Black cube, which brought us in to the black cube worship of the Muslims. Everywhere you go in Mecca, people bow towards it. Not everywhere in Mecca. Everywhere you go in the world, people bow towards Mecca, which are Muslim. This building called Kaaba is what they're bowing towards. Okay? That is Muslims. On the other side, we have Kabbalism, which is Jewish mysticism. Your boy Jared Kushner and his wife Ivanka wear the red strings around their wrist. That is for Kabbalism. If you study Madonna and most of Hollywood, they're involved in this. That is that tree of life and the chakras that we went over that you have. Now, notice here, and I brought this up last week, if you got this building is known as Kaaba, this is Kabbalah. Allah. There's not a nickel's worth of difference in the deal. This is why I keep telling you, just because Satan changes his face or changes his clothes, it's still Satan. He's just remasking himself and putting it out this way, and then goes, okay, that'll get these people in, but then I'll remask and get these people in. It's still all the same thing, okay? Which brought us to your boys at the Masons Lodge, how they're involved in cube worship. That's these guys here, which ties you back into Cabal, which has the two pillars that we will eventually get to with the all-seeing eye and the steps. And we'll talk a little bit about those steps tonight. Then we got in the unicrucial hexagram. This is a 6-pointed star, but it's done in a different shape, and it's designed by never pulling your pencil off of the paper, which is where we got into Aleister Crowley's magic books, and he always had the rose on his, which was a part of his thelema, which is his order of worship. That rose ties into the Rosicrucians. Now, I'm taking a bit of time to show you how they're all connected. And how they're all connected ultimately is through symbolism, which is how they take this knowledge and pass it down from generation to generation through symbolism. Now, here's your Aleister Crowley. Now, if you guys want some homework, figure out who his daughter is. Which may actually be his son. And I'll let you dig into that. But that's Aleister Crowley. He's a very ugly man. And he's got his book over here. Now notice this is the OTO collection from the Blue Onyx. Now, Equinox, excuse me. He's got the star system going here, but notice the wing disc here and the 2 pillars here. Here's a guy he's into dark magic, and he's into the occult, and he's into divination, and he actually begins to speak to a gray known as Lamb, okay? And the purpose I'm bringing all this out is your boy Joseph Smith, that's right, Joseph Smith, that started the Mormon church, was a huge studier of this guy, man. You got to understand the guys that you're studying after, and who he was famous for hooking up with some entity and speaking to it. And the reason I'm taking my time is we're going to talk about that tonight. So here's where we left off last week. This is called the Seal of the Truth of God by John Dee. This is a symbolism that he had placed out there, and you can see all that's designed there, and we're going to go over each one of them. But let's talk about who is John Dee. John Dee was a renowned 16th century mathematician, writer, astronomer, astrologer, occult philosopher in England. He was well known for being an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, and major part of his life was dedicated to the study of alchemy, occultism, and divination. Now you understand what divination is, right? This is conjuring up spirits. And so, guys, you ever drive by these palm readers and stuff? Okay. You understand that is real stuff. Now, I understand a lot of it's fake that they get on television, but you can go into a lot of those places and they start reading your hand or your palm, or they'll start hearing from a voice or whatever, and you're going, oh, that's just garbage. Is it? Or is it they're tapping into an energy source or a spirit not on our team? Now, if you think that's far-fetched, well, what do you think Christians do? Don't we tap into a source? I mean, I hope you are. Really? I mean, we're telling the world that, hey, November 1st, 1994, when I gave my heart and life to Jesus, this spirit came in to live inside of me. Now, understand, to the lost individual, him hearing us say that and hearing some individual say, well, I'm speaking through the Spirit, he sees that as one and the same. All I'm saying is the same way as us as born-again Bible believers get an unction or get power from the Spirit of God to be able to do things that are beyond our ability, the same way the evil side taps into spirits to achieve power and get an unction and begin to do things that is beyond their ability. So the reason when I bring out divination, the Bible's very clear to stay away from it. Now let me ask you something. Then why did God spend so much time to tell you to stay away from divination if it was just hokum? Just silliness. If it was just some goofiness that somebody was doing, wouldn't God go, yeah, I'm not worried about that. There's nothing to that. No, God was very worried about it. Matter of fact, in Exodus, a witch was to be put to death. Like, there was no messing around. Like, nope, you find out somebody's involved in that, take them out. Right? Now, so here's John Dee. And the reason I'm bringing this guy out is he has that symbol, but I want to tie him back into who we've been talking about. This image depicts John Dee, Elizabeth's personal astrologer, passing a lantern symbolizing the esoteric tradition to Francis Bacon. Now, who is Francis Bacon? That's the guy who wrote The New Atlantis, who wrote The Secret Destiny of America. Well, that was Manly P. Hall, but he wrote another one about why America was set up the way it was. So the essence of George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, all those guys were studying after Francis Bacon, who was studying after John Dee, who was a divination guy. This kind of goes against your whole, oh, those founding fathers were great Christian men. Not according to Scripture. All right. Now, notice here, the passing of the lantern to John Dee, or from John Dee to Francis Bacon, who I believe is the actual real William Shakespeare. Okay, I don't believe William Shakespeare per se existed. I think it was a pseudonym for Francis Bacon, but that's a whole nother study. Now check this out. He's handing him a lantern. Why? The light bearer. Illuminated. Now remember, what is Lucifer? Light bearer. He's illuminated. Now check this out. Do you understand, within the occult world, Satan's a good dude. And to them, he's not Satan, he's Lucifer. That's why they consider themselves Luciferians. They believe that they go back to Genesis 3, and they think that no, Satan or Lucifer was trying to help mankind out by giving them knowledge so that we could have this information and illuminate them, and that the God of the Bible was the mean one that wouldn't allow them to have it. Now, what is all esoteric stuff built off of? Knowledge. And in the symbolism of it, when you receive this knowledge, you become illuminated, okay, which is what this passing of the lantern is. All right? Dee was one of Bacon's tutors in the cipher and possible model for the character Prospero in The Tempest. In other words, that was a William Shakespeare play, okay? And the original historic 007 that Ian Fleming based his James Bond insignia number from, which is this. Remember when I talked to you about Facebook symbolism? That's Tubal Cain's symbol right there. And that's where they believe the 007 came from. Now, so when we look at John Dee's seal of the truth of God, we're going to start breaking down the symbolism in it. One, we're going to start with the pentagram. Now, most people know what a pentagram is. Right? It's what we actually do to, if somebody's going to, write a star on something, they're going to do that, right? Now, based on what I've showed you in frequency study, and what you can tell with your own naked eye, great, no wonder I'm getting, this thing's in bad shape, man. We got ink all over this. But either way, how do you get that symbol for a star? How does a pentagram look like a star? In any way, shape, form, or fashion. Nothing about a star looks like that. But I wonder why that is. I wonder why it always is. But that's what a pentagram represents, a star, right? But here's what they say. The pentagram, a five-pointed star, often enclosed in a circle, is a symbol of the most recognizable symbols in esotericism. Each point typically represents one of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water, along with the spirit at the top. So we have the spirit up here with this circle around it. All right? Air, water, fire, earth. Now, notice that all four of the bottom ones are materialistic. And the spirit is not. It is from another dimension or another realm, if you will. Okay? You and I, we all understand that. We live in a physical world. My body is physically here. I am here. I'm trapped within a three-dimensional world. But inside of me is a spirit, not only a born-again spirit, but the Holy Spirit of God. And we are moved by that spirit in a physical world. That's not that hard to believe as a Christian. Well, those in the esoteric world understand that as well. We're in the physical world, but we are being controlled by a spirit that is from another world. Okay? Now, the pentagram is used for protection against negative energies and influences. When drawn correctly, it serves as a talisman for balance, harmony among the elements and forces. Okay, that sounds pretty, harmless. Does it not? I mean, hey, okay, fine. That guy looks at a star and he finds balance and harmony in his life. We would kind of giggle at that for the fact that we'd go, okay, well, that's great. You got you a star. Now, watch. The five prints of the great light are represented within the esoteric pentagram. That's supposed to be 5 points. All right? Do you understand that when Da Vinci gave his actual man design, or whatever you call that thing is, measurement of the man kind of thing, it is designed to be that 5-pointed star. And notice the head is where the spirit is, because it's all about the knowledge within esotericism, and you're climbing the ladder on the more you know, and you become more adept or more illuminated as you grow. All right? The Gnostic star in the human figure has with 4 limbs and a unique vertex that is the head. Okay? Do you understand? This is the problem when we start understanding Gnosticism, and I haven't spent tons of time teaching that in here, but Gnosticism is a very simple thought to understand. Gnosticism is built off of knowledge, okay? The word Gnostic or gnosis we still use today. You go to the doctor and he gives you an exam and he gives you a diagnosis. He's saying, I know what's wrong with you. Okay? That's what knowledge is. And so Gnosticism, which has crept into the church, is all about knowledge. That's one of the reasons, guys, we're not against seminary. That's great. Get all the Bible college you can and get all the degrees you want. But this book has never been designed to be taught from an intellectual, but more from a spiritual. It's a spiritually discerned book. Therefore, you can be the smartest guy in the room and still don't know anything about the Bible. Okay? Now, but notice here's the pentagram. You ever notice in how many things it's in? You got it in Texaco, you got it in Macy's, right there in Walmart, you got it in Converse, you got it in Starbucks, and hopefully one day we'll get to that symbol right in the middle of that coffee cup. By the way, just as a side note, if you're buying that trash, first of all, that's a horrible cup of coffee, and you're paying way too much for it. But second of all, that's not a good company. And they are anti everything we believe in. You know, I realize we can't boycott everything, but I'm not about to hand them guys any money, okay? Now, Heineken, that's for you beer drinkers. All right, OnStar, Cirrus, they all got the stars, right? So I pulled this up off of magicalwinds.com. And they're showing you how to actually draw this out. And this way is to invoke a spirit, okay? This is to banish a spirit. Now to you and I, we look at that and go, it's just a star, who cares? To these guys that are in the magical world, and when I speak of magical world, get Disney out of your head, although they are not, they're not straight. But either way, when I speak of magic, I'm talking about people that are involved in divination, who are involved in witchcraft, who are dealing with spirits on levels that you and I wouldn't even want to get involved in. And they're telling you right online, here's how you do it. If you want to invoke a spirit, here's a spirit: active, passive, fire, water, air, earth, and they're telling you exactly how to work this thing. Now, once again, to the average Christian, oh, that's just all a bunch of garbage. Okay, well, hang on. How about these guys? All right, now this is what's called a tetragrammaton star. But I want you to notice the symbolism here, this little thing here, which you can find right here, all right? All the Hebrew symbolism that's involved in it, the six-pointed star right here, right over here with your boys that are collecting money on the side of the street. Now, once again, to help you out, if you're driving down the road and you've gave a couple bucks to the guy in the funny hat, that doesn't make you evil and it doesn't make him evil. And hopefully that money went to help somebody. I'm trying to teach you from the top level of what they believe, not the guy down the street with the hat. I just couldn't wear that hat. I'm sorry. I don't know what level you got to be at to be above the hat, but I'd have to start there. Now, all right, let me show you this. Christy sent me this, and I thought this was a really good.
I have a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason, and I'm a Knight Templar, York Rite Mason.
Welcome to the Salt Lake Masonic Temple.
We take good men and make them better. This is the colonial room. The stairs over here also contain some things. So the first three steps are actually
notice the floor,
square, the level, and the plumb. And those are the symbols of the offices of the three principal officers in the lodge. Then we have the five senses, and then the last seven, and you probably already figured out 3, 5, and 7, which are very Masonic numbers. And these are the 7 liberal arts and sciences.
Okay.
But early in Masonry, Masons were encouraged to make themselves thoroughly familiar with the 7 liberal arts and sciences. And if you think back on stonemasons in general, they probably would have been very well educated in geometry and in stonemasonry, but not necessarily those things.
Now, I don't know if I need to play it again, but there was all kinds of symbolism. Like even the floor is in a hexagon. And you think that's by happenstance? And he's letting you know that all this is symbolism. He had the 2 towers going right up by the steps. We're going to spend way more time exposing that. I was just trying to show you these guys are into the symbolism. They're telling you they're into it. It's us that go, no big deal. All right? What's up with the stars? Now, I know somebody's right now going, well, they represent the states. You got it. Why stars? Why not dots? Why not circles? Why not squares? Why stars? And remember, that's not what a star looks like. You think it's just by accident, or do you think maybe the founding fathers had something else in mind? Oh, by the way, just as a side note, in the Bible, what's a star? It's an angel. Always. It's never any other thing, okay? Now, so you got to ask yourself, wonder why they chose that for a deal. Here is another thing. It's called the upside down or inverted pentagram, or the upside down star. Now, the average person comes around and they go, well, see, that's what it is, Corey. An upright star, like what's on our flag, that's good stuff. But when you flip it around and put a circle around it, it's now evil. Really? Is that how it works? Upright, good. Flip it over, no. I think we've learned about some stuff about same as above, so below. None of it's good. Okay, now watch. This is the Baphomet, or the goat horns, when the star's upside down. Now, although the upright pentagram has a long, complex history, it wasn't until the 19th century that the inverted pentagram took on a greater significance in the occult world during the 1800s, when French occultist Eliphas Levi captured the public attention with his interest in magic and occult. Levi, his pseudonym, Alphonse Leon Coursant, all right, or whatever his name is, Alphonse Louis Constant, all right, associated the inverted pentagram with evil. He especially associated the inverted pentagram with the horns of the goat of witches' Sabbath, or a holy day. The goat refers to Baphomet, the half-human, half-goat figure that represents the demon or the devil. And guys, I've spent hours in this classroom talking about Baphomet and Pan, the goat god, and we've connected all those things and how the Baphomet is male and female together. We could get into Venus, where Venus is actually Satan, but it's the female version of Satan. Now, so then I pulled up this, which is the Wiccan spells, okay? So this is, if you look up what a Wicca is, or a Wiccan, these are witches, and it came big in the 1950s, but when we think of witches, if I say witches, what do you think of? Some woman, right? You know, brewing her stuff, right? The word witch applies to male and female. It's not a female thing. It's both genders get involved in this. Now watch. Wicca, the largest of the modern pagan or neo-pagan religions, is followers who are called Wiccans, typically identify as witches and draw inspiration largely from the pre-Christian religions of Europe. Influenced by earlier forms of Western esotericism, Wiccans publicly emerged in England in the 1950s, and at that time, Wiccans were members of initiatory groups called covens. All right? Although by the early 21st century, most followers were instead operating solitarily. Today, the number of Wiccans is probably in the low hundreds of thousands, the majority residing in English-speaking Western countries. Followers often use the pentagram or the five-pointed star as the main symbol of their religion. Now, they're telling you that. Now, I want you to notice this is a book called Wiccan Spells, where these people cast spells. Now, there are people that go into churches and sit there and do this. Now, you think we're all coming in here and we're having to do all this stuff so that the music's just right, the air conditioning's just right. That's never going to be that way here, so just get over it, all right? Now, you think we're just doing all this stuff to model our church in such a way that people will be attracted and come here and, yeah, and guys, we're obviously involved in trying to be approachable, and we want lost people to feel welcome. Now, understand, I don't want them to feel comfortable. There is a difference. I want lost people to walk in here, but I do want them to feel uncomfortable, because if they're comfortable, we're not teaching truth. Because truth is uncomfortable. It is. Listen, I don't like it. I'm saved and on my way to heaven. If somebody's preaching something that's kind of getting under my skin, I'm moving around a little bit like, hey, man, I'm not really big on this. However, when you look at this, guys, and what Wiccans do, they'll send people into churches to cast spells while a guy's preaching during an altar call, to do anything they can to stop the movement of God. What you don't realize is every time you walk into this building, there is a spiritual battle that goes on behind the scenes that you never see. That's what this thing of prayer is all about. And not prayer once you get to the building, prayed before you get here. All right, now notice this. Discover the power of Wiccan spells, herbal magic, essential oils, and witchcraft rituals for Wiccans, witches, and other practices of magic. Now, let me just stop, because I have no problems with essential oils, okay? Guys, just because the Wiccans are using it doesn't mean it's wrong or it's bad. God has put all kinds of stuff on this planet to help us, okay? And there's all kinds of roots and trees and, medicines that we can do that help us. And by the way, for those of you that are against the essential oils, but you are for pharmaceuticals, do you know what pharmaceutical means in Latin? Witch's brew. It literally ties you in to the same thing. And I would tell you, I'll take my chances with a root that God put on the planet before some mad scientist whipped up some concoction in some place. But I wanted to bring that out and show you that. Now, here's the reason I bring this out, white magic and black magic, okay? Because those that are in the Wiccans or in whatever esoteric would tell you, well, you can have good magic and you can have bad magic. Black magic would be that against that hurts people and goes against people. And then you have people who say, no, no, no. Then we have white magic, which is designed to promote certain things and bring positive energies to me and all this stuff. This is why people wear crystals around their neck and different things of all, along those lines. You got to be careful when you're getting involved into that stuff. Even when the frequencies that we talked about, there are frequencies that come from crystals. But understand, we don't understand all of that. And so you got to be careful of understanding what certain things are and what certain things are not, because you start getting involved in stuff that you don't want to be involved in. Now, black magic versus white magic. What's the difference between them? All right. If you are searching around the internet for resources about magic, you will no doubt find plenty of references to black magic. Some sites promote black magic as particularly potent form of magic, while others warn against it, portraying it as negative or harmful. Therefore, violation of one rule of Wicca is to harm no one. All right. Some witches believe that there is both black magic and white magic, and the Wiccans only practice white magic, which is beneficial and positive, causing harm to no living being. And there are even some who make a distinction between black witches and white witches. According to the concept, Wiccans fall into a white category, while those who choose to do harm with their magic are black witches. But just what is black magic really? These are the distinctions. All right, so he goes on to talk about it. And this is just right off of WiccaLiving.com, black magic versus white magic. All right, now, watch this. See if I can make this work.
It's the foulest, the most evil of all symbols in the occult world. There is nothing that can even come close. It is this symbol that must be used during high ceremonial magic or high ceremonial witchcraft when you are summoning up demons to this plane of existence.
This symbol is used in black magic. It comes from the Jewish Kabbalah, Jewish magic. It is a symbol of dark summoning. What I mean by that is that if you want to put a hex on somebody, you want to cause a spirit to come forth, this is the symbol that's used. It's called a hexagram. Now, it is not, never has been, never will be the Star of David.
We'll talk about her here in weeks to come. Now, notice what he said. You use this. This is a Satanist that was saying that. You use this symbol to summons up a demon. Now, is that possible? Can they summons up a demon? You ever read a Bible? All right, one of the things that you will notice that the first time Christ came was demonic activity was crazy. It was everywhere. I mean, Satan, or when Jesus comes walking around doing his ministry, these guys are working everywhere. Okay? Now, watch. Leviticus 19:31, regard not them that have familiar spirits, or we would call them mediums, right? Mediums, all right? Neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them, all right? Leviticus 20:27, a man also or woman that have a familiar spirit or that is a wizard shall surely be put to death, okay? They shall be stoned with their stones, and their blood shall be upon them. All right. 2 Chronicles 33:6. And he caused his children. Now this is Manasseh. By the way, before I get to him. Now why would God give the warning to say, hey, stay away from that stuff if it wasn't real? If they couldn't conjure up anything, and there was no other dimension to start pulling from, then why would God care that there was a witch? I mean, let's be honest. Well, you say, well, there's good magic and bad magic. There's white magic and black magic. Kind of like your Harry Potter. Isn't he a good guy? Who watches that? I know you nerds do. Let's go. Who's watching that? Harry Potter's good? Yes. All right, good. All right, see, I knew there was a nerd in here. All right. So Harry Potter's a good guy that uses magic for good, right? And then there's an evil guy? What's his name? Baltimore. Who? Baltimore? Baltimore. Okay. Well, either way. So that's what I'm showing you, that the dark side looks at, well, no, this is good, this is bad. And we as the Christians would go, no. It's all bad. You're dealing with spirits that you don't want to mess with. Okay? Now watch this. This is the son of Hezekiah, Manasseh. You know how evil he is? Watch this. He caused his children to pass through to the fire. In other words, sacrifice them in the valley of Hinnom. Okay? Also observed times, used enchantments and used witchcraft and dealt with familiar spirits and with wizards, and he brought much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. God was not happy. By the way, just as a little side note, do you remember the story of Hezekiah? He was going to die and beg God for more time. Do you know what happened in that time period that God gave him extra time? This dude was born. Had God just let him go on out, the world never sees this dude. Maybe sometimes it's good when we don't get our prayers answered. All right? Now, 1 Chronicles chapter 10, 13, and 14 says that Saul died for his transgressions which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. So here's what's happening. He's in a fight, and Israel needs to understand we need to know what to do. And Saul cannot get a hold of God. And Samuel died. You guys know the story? See, what does he do? He calls the witch of Endor and says, hey, I need you to summons me somebody. This is a crazy story. People act like the Bible's boring. He's down there asleep in paradise in Abraham's bosom, and the witch of Endor, he has to hide himself, but he goes to her and she summons Samuel up out of the ground, and he comes standing. Now, I don't know how he's there, if he's like Obi-Wan in some, aura. And he looks, and he basically is like, why are you bothering me? I was sleeping and hanging out down here, having a good time, and now you brought me up here. And God says, because you've done that, you're done. I'm taking you out. That's how serious that stuff is, and yet we act like it's no big deal. Now watch. Now watch this. Did you guys see this? That's a voodoo doll. They're in New Orleans. Now look, I was not rooting for the Chiefs at all. I was about done with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I was sick and tired of the storyline. But you're talking about a guy who has confessed to be a Christian, and this woman's trying to stab his voodoo doll. And I'm like, you said, well, is that why the Chiefs lost? I have no idea. I would tend to think it's more rigged than that, but okay, either way. Now, so then we go from the 5-pointed star to the hexagram, where I showed you earlier is, according to the Satanists, the most demonic symbol you can have. Hexagram. You guys remember when I've done that a couple times in here? You go take all the words that end in X and look at them and see how all that letter X comes back. Because remember that, because here in a few weeks we'll be tying that in. Now, hexagram, let's look at this thing, all right? You ever wonder what that's all about? Since I got onto the American flag, I might as well get onto Israel's. Wonder which one bothers you more. All right, now watch this. What does that come from? You know what that's called to them? Star of David. Now, as a person who has read through the Bible multiple times, I've never seen that star. The Star of David, where is that? What verse is that in? I missed that somewhere. Now watch this. Star of David ties into Moloch. Watch this. Click it. There we go. Acts chapter 7, verse 43. This is Stephen. He's preaching. He says, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, the star of your god Rephaim. That's what that star is. The hexagram is tied into Moloch, and Molech was tied into child sacrifice. Guys, I'm not trying to get political, but when you get to the heart of what Planned Parenthood is and the heart of what abortion is, it's not about women's reproductive rights. It's about sacrifice. Okay? Now, understand, that symbol, that hexagram, has been around long before 1948 and that flag. That thing is found in every ancient area that you can study. Egypt, Japan, Mesopotamia, Phoenician, Ethiopian, Roman, Armenian. You can go all over the world and find that symbol. And as we just heard, that guy was like, this is the most demonic of all the symbols. This is how you summons or conjure up the demon. All right? Notice it's on the back of your dollar. We'll get into this later on, but I just want you to know when you go to these points, it spells out Mason. All right? Now, here's a guy I watch from time to time. I don't quite agree with everything you're going to see here, but he's onto a little something I want you to see.
Star forts. Okay, so the star shape is tethered to demonic stuff, the cult stuff. A lot of times, like the pentagram and the hexagram and all that stuff, they're tethered to these type of things, right? So what if the star shapes are actually angelic things? And what if those were like angel forts? And that's why they put Satan, the Statue of Liberty, on top of the angel fort. It was like just an angel spot that like existed. Do you understand? Tell me.
You know, like, so in witchcraft and things like that,
yeah,
you know, they put sigils in there to bind certain spirits. But yeah, what if Ellis Island or whatever, there's a star fort on there, it's like, what if that really was some kind of sigil that kept some spirit bound? Ooh, that's crazy.
Notice the painting?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, it's a fort, right? It's like an angelic holding place. So it was like an angel fort. So it was like where the angels fortified areas or environments, and that's why they built it on top of it. Maybe it was like a sigil that was like binding things, or it was the angels just would hang out there, or it was like a way that they teleported there or something, you know? I think it's something angelic, and I think it's very indicative that they built Lucifer's Statue of Liberty on top of a star fort. To me, that's just like right there, it feels like, okay, clearly the star fort was something of God, and it was something that maybe has an angelic connection or whatever, and that's why they built Statue of Liberty on top of it. It was like Satan's like saying, I'm greater than this. I'm free out of this. I've come out of this. I'm above it.
Now, and for some of you might be a little rocked at the moment, we haven't went in depth on the Statue of Liberty yet. It is Isis. It is not, it's Lady Liberty. It is Astar, Ishtar, but it's also tied in with Lucifer and Satan. And you say, well, I thought it was a female. Well, so is Baphomet, who's a male, female. And if you went involved in the Antichrist, that when we taught what Behemoth is, the sinew of his stones are tied. In other words, he's either a eunuch, transgender, some type of mutilation, something along the lines. Now, here's the other thing, is the hexagon that goes on. So you can see the inside is the hexagram, but this is the hexagon. The actual outside perimeter is involved in here. When I said look at the floor in that carpet where the Masons were meeting, this was all over the floor. Okay? Now, the sacred geometry, according to them, the field of sacred geometry considers certain shapes and portions to be inherently divine and powerful. The hexagon, with its perfectly symmetry and natural occurrences, holds a special place in its discipline. Many believe that incorporating hexagonal patterns into living spaces and meditation practices can create a positive energetic field. So once again, the shape is summoning the spirit, or as the modernists say, the energy. So once again, yeah, we would say, no, we're against all that. We don't want any spirit other than the Holy Spirit moving upon us. Now, the one great thing for those of you that are saved, according to Scripture, you cannot be possessed by some other entity. You have been sealed unto the day of redemption. So now, some people, you could be oppressed by a spirit. In other words, you could have stuff in your home and different things like that. That's one of the reasons why we've never allowed anything in our home that would bring any kind of this stuff in. And for we always use the Ouija board because it's the easy one to go to, but there's tons of that stuff out there that you could bring in. But guys, do you understand how much stuff we're bringing into our home through movies? All that Marvel stuff that we're bringing in and all that. Listen, as much as I teach on this stuff, my kids will come up and go, "Hey, Dad, that was in this such and such Marvel movie." Or "Hey, man, I saw that in this." So I'll give you an example. We're about out of time, but we're going to get into the swastika. And everybody's going, "Oh, that's Adolf Hitler, that's racism, and he started that." Pfft, please. That symbol's been around as long as any of them have. But Hitler was involved in the occult at a level that most people don't understand. Matter of fact, he goes over into the Tibetan area and they're trying to find the virile. Okay, you guys have ever heard of this? All right, so I'm taking CJ as a kid to a baseball thing and I'm listening to Alberino talk about this virile people. And he was like, "Oh, that's in one of my video games. The virile." What was it? Yeah, Black Ops. And they're looking for the virile. Okay? Now, subtly, Satan keeps just putting it out in different mediums and different ways to get it into the home. Like, none of us, unless you're just a moron, would ever have like a Ouija board in our house. The question is, what do we have in our house? Now, but notice the symbolism. Here's OpenAI, which is brand new. Notice the symbolism. How about J.P. Morgan? Chase Bank. Those are some fine folks. Now, next week, we're going to pick up with the whole wing disc and launch out from there. I'm out of time for this week. So, just as a side note, here's how this is going to work, for especially those of you here and those online. I will be back next Wednesday night to teach number 6. 2 weeks from tonight, Justin, you are, right? All right, Justin's teaching because CJ and I will be on the slopes. Then we have discipleship conference, so there'll be no Wednesday night. Then we have a missionary coming in that we're going to want. Now, we're having service. It's just I'm not teaching the class. So I'll teach next week, and then it'll be April, and we'll pick back up in this series and take it hopefully towards the summertime, and we'll take a break from there. So, all right, God bless you. We'll see you next week.